on to our next story here, and this is about Cenk Uygur. So you guys know Cenk Uygur, founder of the Young Turks, is running for president. I'm not kidding. And he says that he believes that he can beat Joe Biden. Now, there are a number of issues that came up with Cenk's candidacy. Obviously, the big one is the fact that he was not born in the United States. He was born in Turkey. His response to that is he's going to actually take that straight to the Supreme Court and challenge the natural born citizen phrase that's in the Constitution. I don't think a right-wing Supreme Court is going to help Cenk try to run for president. But it is what it is. We'll have to wait and see. And then two, the other issue is the fact that, you know, he is the founder of the Young Turks. He said he's going to stay on TYT and keep that position, but he's not allowed to comment on the Democratic primary because he's now a part of that. But recently, there's another issue that was revealed in an interview that Cenk Uygur had with Crystal and Kyle on Crystal, Kyle, and Friends, which it appears that Cenk Uygur is going to be okay with taking PAC money. Oh, buddy. Oh, here we go.
All right, so let's wrap it up with some policy questions here. So I know back in the day you were a supporter of the public option for healthcare, but then you backed Bernie twice. You were a big advocate of Medicare for all. But when I went to cenkforamerica.com, one of the policies listed is public option. So are you running on the public option or are you running on Medicare for all?
Pause. So that was one of the things I mentioned when I discussed his announcement for, president, his candidacy for presidency, that on his website, it says public option in reference to healthcare instead of Medicare for all. And he was a supporter of Medicare for all. Listen to the way that Cenk Uygur tries to spin this. Heads up, people.
So, great question. Number one, am I in favor of Medicare for all? Absolutely, 100%. So why do I put public option instead of Medicare for all? Because if I get elected, I'm just going to go down the list of the most popular positions in America, and I'm going to give it to the American people, okay? So you want paid family leave the most. Why? Because I can see polling, and that polls the highest. So I'm going to give you paid family leave so moms can take 12 weeks off. And you see my attitude here. Does it look like I'll be bothered by the parliamentarian? No, I will get the parliamentarian fired the first day. And if anybody messes with us and says, oh, no, filibuster, this or that, I'm going to hurt them politically. And they're going to win, but the whole country's going to know they represent corporate America, and they made it so that moms cannot take any time off when they have a baby. And that villain's name is Joe Manchin.
This has nothing to do with the fact that if you support Medicare for all, you have a different phrase on your website, which is the public option, not Medicare for all, which sounds like to me what Cenk Uygur is trying to do, although he's saying in this interview that he supports Medicare for all, he is actually trying to say public option on his website, his campaign instead, so that he can get support for the public option because that's more appealing to some people in his opinion, instead of coming straight out and saying Medicare for all. You know how many people are going to reference and go back to the website when it comes to your policy positions? What you say in interviews versus what you have on your website. I do that when I interview candidates. I ask them, like, well, on the website, it says, RFK Jr. has been called out a couple of times versus what he says in interviews and what's actually on his website. So I think this is a problem. It appears to me that Cenk is trying to water it down on the website instead of just keeping it real and saying Medicare for all. But let's continue.
And I'm going to shame them until their polling is down at 12%. I'm going to crush them politically until we get what you want and not what the politicians want and what the donors want. So public option polls excellent. And even conservatives go, well, I mean, it's just an option, man. I don't need to do the government option. If my private options are brilliant and awesome, although none of them are, I'll stick with them. So that's why it polls well with Republicans and Democrats. But no politician will give it to you because it'll hurt the healthcare insurance companies and the drug companies. It'll prevent more of their robberies, right? So I start with public option, but think about it, Kyle. Imagine.
Let's pause there. How is this any different from what Pete Buttigieg said when he ran for president in 2020 and he said Medicare for all who want it? How is this any different? He's saying that he'll start with public option because he said it polls really well. But come on, guys, think about this for a second. When he criticized the politician that said, well, for those who want it, people, have public option. And if those who want it, how is this any different? It's the cheap way out. So Cenk Uygur only wants to present policies that poll well, that are popular. So anything that's not popular, according to Cenk, I don't think that's going to be really a part of his platform. That's the thing. He don't really want to take no risk. He's not really a fighter. As much as he said, I will fight to the death. He's like, Marianne's not a fighter. He said, I will fight. No, he's not really a fighter if you only want to go with what is popular. We have to think about some of the things that have passed in this country, some of the things that have been accomplished in this country that were not popular at that point in time. The civil rights movement at that point in time wasn't popular. People brag about it today, but at that point in time, it wasn't popular. Let's continue.
Imagine I got paid family leave passed, $15 minimum wage, bring up everybody's wages, got the public option passed. We're rolling because these are all super popular policies, and I'm putting a spotlight on them with the biggest bully pulpit there is. Then you've built up the momentum to be able to pass Medicare for all. Instead, if you went in and you didn't act strategically and you went for the hardest one, and why is it the hardest? Because it's not popular? No, it's the hardest because that's where all of the drug companies and all the insurance companies will spend every dollar they have buying every politician to defeat you, right?
So he's not willing to do what's hard. He's not willing to do what's difficult.
Got to work your way up to that strategically. That's not a 30-year plan. Hell no. But once you've passed these popular bills that nobody thought could be passed, then you've got enough momentum and leverage to go, now let's do Medicare for all. And good news, Medicare for all also polls really well.
So Anna asked you a similar question in her interview with you, but I just want to clarify your position here. Will you accept big money donations? Will you accept corporate PAC money, super PAC money, etc.?
Yeah. So guys, super PACs, corporate PAC money is the worst thing in the world. And so the first political organization I ever started was Wolfpack. And so now that leads to an interesting point. So Wolfpack is meant to get money out of politics, fights for a constitutional amendment to make sure that we end private financing of elections. So, but at the same time, Wolfpack's a super PAC.
Pause. So here's the thing. So Wolfpack is a super PAC. Couldn't Cenk have started some other type of organization that wasn't a super PAC to accomplish that same goal? This is where the car salesman behavior of Cenk Uygur comes in, right? This is the used car salesman starting to talk. Well, of course, I'm against corporate PAC money and super PAC money, but I started Wolfpack to get corporate money out of electoral politics. But Wolfpack is actually a super PAC. Excuse me? Let him go on.
So is that some sort of irony? Well, yeah, it's an irony. Does that mean it's hypocrisy? No. In my ideal world, the PACs that I started, Wolfpack, Rebellion PAC, even Justice Democrats, get so strong, so powerful, and this is actually the plan, and it was the plan from a dozen years ago when I started Wolfpack.
It's not hypocrisy because it's something that he did. It's not hypocrisy because it's a PAC that he created. So because he created, it's not hypocrisy. What? Guys, when I told you guys, I think it was like a year ago, the truth about Justice Democrats, and I told you this was all a scam. Like, this was not like, a lot has been revealed. It's like, you can't sit up here and say, don't take super PAC money, don't take PAC money, don't take corporate. And you are admitting to, well, yeah, it's a super PAC, but because I created it, it's different. No, if it's a super PAC that you created, then my assertion is that it's actually going to be even more corrupt because you did it. As if you're not going to look out for yourself. Are you kidding me? We should trust a PAC that Cenk Uygur created, that he will use for himself. Look at the look on his face right now. You can tell, honey. I don't know what kind of used car he's trying to sell. Give me a car in the chat, but he's trying to sell something right now. What is it? Is it a Chevy? Cadillac? A sedan? Let me know.
That we use the Achilles heel of the system against it. That they raise so much money and defeat everyone who's against money in politics to the point where the politicians throw up their hands and go, we got to end super PACs just so we can end Wolf PAC, just so we can end Rebellion PAC. So that they can get our money out of politics. So you could say, well, that's unrealistic. You could say, I don't like that pathway. I'm going to convince them with pretty please. God bless your hearts. I love you. Try in any way you can to defeat the system. That's my way of defeating the system. So,
how is Wolf PAC going to become larger than like APAC? How is it going to become larger than APAC? Think about this, guys. Is he serious?
So if I was at the DNC, would I have voted for the proposal that they had recently to ban super PACs from Democratic primaries? Absolutely. But they didn't pass that proposal. So now I'm not going to do unilateral disarmament and go, okay, Joe Biden and everybody else and their uncle gets to have giant super PACs, but I'm not going to. No.
So here we go. So if he would have voted for getting super PACs out of the Democratic primary, even though he has a super PAC that he created, but now he's still willing to use the super PAC that he created, then he's a damn lie. He wouldn't have voted against ending super PACs out of the Democratic primary because he owns one. Like, this is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous.
Oh, if super PACs come in on my side, which, by the way, is not enormously likely, but I'm being honest and I'm being principled. And I'm telling you, yes, I would allow the super PACs. And if I win, my first priority is get the goddamn money out of politics.
Yeah, I mean, I feel conflicted in the sense that I feel like you might raise more money by saying, look, I'm only taking small dollar donations.
Like Bernie Sanders did. So I'm going to agree. I agree with Kyle on this one. Like Bernie Sanders. Do you know why Bernie Sanders was able to raise so much money? Let's go back to the last one in 2020. Because he had the small dollar donations. That $27, that's where most of his money came from. So people who maybe didn't have much, and I, especially at that time, things were kind of tight for me, more tight for me then. People who didn't have as much, I'm like, okay, I can give the $27. That's where most of Bernie Sanders' money came from. But Cenk Uygur, if people see, which I don't think many people gonna want to donate to you anyway, but if people see on your website, they see when we look into open secrets and they look up that FEC information, which I do on this show, they're going to see that you are taking money from a super PAC. That doesn't motivate people to donate small dollar donations to you. That doesn't motivate people like me. I said the same thing about when Cornel West took that $3,300. I said the same thing. I said that actually discourages people to give you the small dollar donations. The focus should be on the small dollar donations, not on the larger amounts, right? So we learned that from Bernie Sanders' campaign. I said the same thing. Now, Cornel West gave that money back, but Cenk Uygur actually thinks that having this super PAC is going to be better for him when he actually is a co-host on a show that told you not to take super PAC money. So no, that actually turns people off. You think all the Bernie bros or what's left of the Bernie bros are going to be like, yeah, I'm going to donate $27 to Cenk Uygur, knowing that you're taking money from a super PAC? I don't think so.
You know, like I have a hard cap and make it even less than what the legal limit is. I have a hard cap at $500. You know what I mean? You don't think it's possible you raise more money that way?
Look, there's no one beating down my door to give millions of dollars right now. And none of this is going to happen with corporations. No corporation is going to give me $1, right?
No one's beating down your door to give you donations because we all know you're full of shit. We all know this is what it is. Cenk just published a book. We know this is about promoting that book, which he's been doing, going on to different shows, promoting the book. We all know that you technically, legally, you can't be president in the United States because you were not born in the US, even though he claims he's going to challenge that to the Supreme Court. Good luck with that one. I'm pretty sure the Supreme Court has much more urgent cases that they need to review versus helping Cenk Uygur run for president of the United States. That's just, just my opinion there. But we all know what this is. Ain't nobody knocking down your door because we know this is a joke.
I'm 1,000,000,000% against corporate PACs. And Kyle, the only rule we had at Just Democrats is that you can't take corporate PAC money. Okay. So, but it is possible, especially in this fight, given the naturalized citizen issue, given the significant legal costs that the campaign will have, that at some point, some folks in that 25 million Americans go, yeah, no, I want Cenk to win this case. So I'm going to do whatever it takes, legal defense fund, give to his campaign through a super PAC, whatever it is. You can't give to the campaign. You just run a super PAC that helps, right? And they want to spend millions of dollars to help. I'm not going to say no. Now, if everybody says no, 100%, no, I would end it instantly. I think the way that they give it realistically, what actually happens is corporate PACs give hundreds of millions of dollars to corrupt politicians. Sorry, I hate to hurt your feelings if you're a Biden fan, including Joe Biden. The ExxonMobil's PAC isn't giving to people like Joe Biden because they think that he's a sweetheart. They're giving it to him so he'll approve the Willow pipeline and every other pipeline there is, and mission accomplished, he did. So if you say, hey, no, I don't like that there's some people that might help your campaign eventually, and you're saying you're okay with that, I hear you. That would actually be the most principled thing you could say against my campaign. All right, great, then support another candidate, but Joe Biden's going to lose.com.
All right, so final two questions. First one, this is a little difficult. I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, but tell me the best thing Joe Biden did and the worst thing Joe Biden did.
Why? Like, why do you want Cenk Uygur to tell you? I understand the worst thing Joe Biden did, but why do you want him to tell you the best thing that Joe Biden did? He's running against Joe Biden. Why would he be singing Joe Biden's praises? But wait for it, folks. But wait, it gets worse.
Oh, okay, yeah. So relatively easy. So, and that's not putting me on the spot. Like, people are used to professional politicians who just sit there and lie and make the world seem like a black and white thing. Everything Joe Biden did is evil because I'm running against him and terrible, and nothing he did is good. No, that's absurd. So, for example, what did Joe Biden do well? He's actually pretty great on jobs. Donald Trump, to be fair, pre-COVID, created 6.4 million jobs. That's not that bad. Joe Biden created in the same time period, 3 years, 14 million jobs. It's the lowest unemployment we've ever had.
Mistake number one, talking about the unemployment rate being dramatically decreased and not mentioning the fact that he kicked people off of unemployment. And I've seen a lot of people do this, by the way. This is not just obviously with like the Biden bro people like David Pakman show or whatever, but I've seen a lot of people actually say this. People like Cenk Uygur as well, people like Kyle Kulinski, leave out the fact that he actually threw people off of unemployment on Labor Day, mind you.
You don't give him credit for that, you're being dishonest. So, and by the way, the polling.
How is it dishonest if you're not giving him credit for that? Again, like I said before, what are the jobs? I mean, if you created 14 million jobs and a lot of these jobs are paying minimum wage, should I give you credit for that? When a lot of these jobs are paying people, what, $7.25 an hour? I should give you credit for that? No, I give you credit when you give people jobs, you create jobs where people actually are earning a living wage to thrive in this country, not a wage to survive, but a wage to thrive. We need to make that a slogan. Let's make that a thing. Eric, can we make that a thing? Not a wage to survive, but a wage to thrive. Yeah, I can give you some credit for that. But based on what I heard from people are still struggling. People still dealing with things financially. Student loan payments kicked back in, so my wallet got hit. So not giving him credit for that, no, that's not being dishonest. Again, what are the jobs? Nobody can tell you. Gene can't tell you. Kyle can't tell you. Joe Biden can't even tell you what the jobs are. And how many of those jobs are temp positions? How many of those jobs are contract positions? Because oftentimes these things are overlooked. How many of these jobs don't have any benefits? So I could give him credit for that.
Shows that Joe Biden is down 19 points on jobs when he created twice as many jobs as Trump. The guy cannot run, man. He's an awful candidate, but he was good on jobs. His National Labor Relations Board is great. I mean, if you watch the Young Turks, you'll see, I mean, you want to go into our archives, you'll see plenty of times where I give Joe Biden credit. The student debt relief, it was a bit of a fake attempt in the beginning, but at least he gave 10% of students actual debt relief. That's better than nothing. It's better than what the Republicans would have done. And I can go on and on. Now, what
10% ain't shit. Like, I'm just being honest with you guys. 10% is nothing when you could think about the amount of student debt in this country. That's nothing.
are the bad things that Joe Biden has done? Well, first of all, on $15 minimum wage, he flat out lied to everyone. He said he was in favor of it. He was definitely not in favor of it. The very first interview he did was at the Super Bowl right after inauguration, and he threw $15 minimum wage under the bus and said, "Oh, that was not going to happen."
Let me just hey, Cenk, let me just interject for 1 sec real quick. You're right about that nationally. I just also want to point out for everybody, he did sign an executive order to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour for all federal contractors and employees, which is 400,000 workers. But to your point, nationally, you're correct. He didn't do it nationally, but he did the executive order. Go ahead.
Yeah, and why is that just limited to people that have federal positions, people that have federal jobs, people that are federal contractors? What about everybody else? The majority of Americans are not. So, you know, again, Joe Biden was looking out for a certain segment of the employment population.
Yeah, and that's exactly what corporate Democrats do. They give you 1 to 5% change, and then they go, "Yay, we did it! Historic change!" 400,000 people is what, 0.1% of the country, if I'm doing the math right. Historic. Look, I'll take it. I credit where credit is due, but he definitely threw it under the bus in 2 different interviews, a Super Bowl interview and then a different interview that he did. He had the 2 Delaware senators vote against it. That is a super clear sign where Joe Biden says, "Fuck the $15 minimum wage. I'm definitely against it." So be honest for a second, Joe Biden. Be honest. You were never in favor of it. Then he said public option. He never even proposed it. He never even proposed it. It was always a lie.
And you're not really going to propose it either. I think Cenk is lying right now too. I don't think he's actually going to propose it either.
Was never going to go against the drug companies because they donate a good $1 jillion to them. Wake up, snap out of the trance. Corporate politicians serve corporate donors. So, and paid family leave. If you can't get something that's at 84% passed, well, you're saying I suck at politics. What do you need it to be? 88%, 94%, 98%? What do you need it to be before you get up off your ass and fight for it? The reason he doesn't fight for it is not an accident, and it's not because he's lazy. It's because all of those things affect corporations. And corporations say, you are not to raise my costs by even 5 cents, controlled President Joe Biden. You're to sit down and pass a semiconductor bill that gives corporations over $50 billion in our money and then pretend that it helps the average guy. So he's done, and then finally, voting rights. These morons. Okay, so first, they promised African Americans, we're going to get you voting rights. Remember Georgia? In Georgia, they're like, "Oh, get us these 2 senators. We're going to get you voting rights." It's originally called
I remember him promising the $2,000 stimulus checks. Like, that was promised to Georgia voters as well. Let's not forget that.
HR 1, it's our number 1 priority. I said, look, half that bill has a 0% chance of passing because it was anti-corruption. It was always a lie. They were never going to do it. The Democrats didn't want to do the anti-corruption parts. But the other half of the bill would have helped Democrats a lot, because it just would have allowed more people to vote. It would have allowed not just more African Americans, but everybody to vote. But when they had a chance to...
Let me comment about the voting rights thing, because there's a significant part that's absent from this conversation that I think does need to be raised. Getting people the rights to vote. Should everybody have these rights already? Absolutely. But what does that do when the system, the political system itself, is inherently corrupt and flawed? If you don't change the system, you don't change the political system, you don't change the fact that you have corporate money coming into electoral politics, if you don't change the fact that you have the mainstream media apparatus catering to certain politicians, typically the ones that have the most money and fit the status quo, if you don't change those things, all of those people flocking and coming out to vote, it only works when the person that they're voting for is of the status quo, is a part of the corporate powers that be, and supports the military industrial complex. And you know how we know that? Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is the perfect example. Look at all the support that Bernie had. 2016, even more in 2020, all the support that he had. But at the end of the day, none of that mattered when it came time to vote, because the system that's in place actively worked against a candidate like Bernie Sanders. And Bernie went along with it, to be honest. I didn't see Bernie calling these things out, because Bernie said that Joe was his good friend and Bernie wanted to keep his Senate seat too. So when we talk about passing and voting rights and making sure that that is accomplished, none of that is going to change anything if the political system itself does not change. You're still going to have the same issues. So looking at a voting rights bill, that's one piece of legislation, but you're not looking at the bigger picture, which is the system. And I think a lot of times this is where sometimes when we talk about like left media, this is where it falls short. That everybody comes up with these proposals like, let's do this, let's do that, but ignoring the fact that until you change the system that is screwed and flawed and fucked in every kind of way, you're not going to see improvement when it comes to the polls. You're not going to see improvement when it comes to voting if the system itself is still screwed.
Lift the filibuster to pass it. They didn't. And now people, mainstream media will tell you, well, you can't lift the filibuster. Is that right? Because in the first 2 years, they did lift the filibuster. You know what they lifted it for? Raising the debt ceiling. Because that would have crashed the stock market and that would have hurt all their donors. So they just told you that corporations in the stock market are more important than black people in this country. That's a fact. They would not move the filibuster for voting rights. So, and by the way, part of the reason is because they're liars. They like the gerrymandered districts because all of the people in the House, including all of the Democrats, got elected in a gerrymandered district. So they were never going to do those things. They were lying to you from day one, including Joe Biden. That's why he didn't deliver on that. Now, do you think I'm going to stop? If I'm president, no. They're going to give you voting rights, and it's not going to be a goddamn question. I will crush anything in my path to get that.
All right. I'm sorry, Crystal.
And the other question, too, I'm sorry, we need to ask, like, why in the hell in 2023 do we, as African Americans, why we even still gotta fight for voting rights in 2023? You know, this country is, and I told you guys this before, this country is racist as hell. Like, think about this, guys. It is 2023. It's just crazy.
Lastly, just on that of how Biden is doing, your evaluation of his response to Israel's war on Gaza.
So that one's mixed. So he comes in 100% on the side of Israel in the beginning, and that's totally understandable. So Hamas did something incredibly stupid and immoral, and the attack against Israel was just barbaric. And guys, it's not.
But they had already made. I want to remind you guys of something. Remember when Congress, they made that pledge to unequivocally support Israel and to have unwavering support for Israel? I just want to remind you that was before October 7th. That was before the attack from Hamas. So the question that I have for you is this: What was the excuse to make that statement back then? So to come out, Biden's coming out in support of Israel, that was already done before October 7th. See, this is another thing I think that people are leaving out. Let's not forget that agreement that Congress made, that passed in the House, that passed in the Senate, to have unwavering support for the state of Israel. Y'all don't even want to have unwavering support for Black people in this country. No bills for that. Because they can pass anti-Asian hate crime bill, but when it comes to Black people, we just sit on the desk. Our legislation just sits there and collects dust. That includes that whack-ass reparations bill, which basically is not about giving Black people any type of cash reparations. It's just about fixing infrastructure issues, which I talked to Rokana about that when he came onto my show. So it's just, to me, it's just to leave that out. You have to mention the agreement that was made to have that support, unwavering support for the state of Israel before this attack even happened.
Just that they kill those poor Israeli citizens. It's that they ruined the Palestinian cause. They set it back so long. And by the way, they smear all of us Muslims when they do barbaric things like that. I loathe it. Okay, but then now...
Notice the vocabulary again, the same vocabulary as Richie Torres, barbaric.
Israel has done the counteroffensive. And as usual, they have already killed twice as many civilians. So now Biden, mixed bag, he says, well, don't do that. I mean, we're going to back you 100% and we're going to send you more weapons to do that. One of our audience members wrote in and said that they found out that the bombs being dropped into Gaza were made in Pennsylvania, and they live in Pennsylvania. And it turned their stomach. And so did we work on the bombs that are killing all those children and babies and grandmothers as they indiscriminately drop bombs on top of building after building, residential buildings and buses and schools, etc. So at this point, Joe Biden is way too much leaning on the side of Israel rather than the side of peace, the side of innocent civilians, whether they're Israeli or Palestinian. So he started out okay, but right now the thumb is on the scale for at the side that is killing way more civilians right now and is promising to kill more. And let's be honest, cutting off water and electricity and mass relocations are war crimes, and they're not arguable. They're definitely war crimes. And I didn't sign up for that. I'm not in favor of that. I would never allow that if I was the American president. Yeah,
I think he's failing miserably. Like you say, he's greenlighting a medieval siege and collective punishment and what's basically a genocide now. But final question. Best thing Trump did, worst thing Trump did?
So, okay, there was a couple of things that Trump did where I was like, oh, that's not so bad. But
Alice Johnson? Alice Johnson, pardoning
Alice
Johnson.
Sure. Yeah. And by the way, not just Alice Johnson, who he pardoned, who should have been pardoned by the past presidents, etc. But the Criminal Justice Reform Bill,
First Step Act,
not that bad. Yeah, the First Step Act was not that bad, right?
Isn't this crazy that the Criminal Justice Reform Bill happened under Donald Trump, the Republican president, instead of Barack Obama? Isn't that crazy?
And we think that the Democratic president would have gotten the First Step Act passed? I'm not so sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So if I got no problem giving credit where credit is due, Trump figured out that the best way to run is against corruption. And that's why he did Drain the Swamp. And that's why he won in 2016.
Pause. This is the piece that Eric, my producer who's in the chat, constantly brings up is corruption. This is the piece that Eric was trying to hit home for people who are running campaigns, focusing on the money and the corruption. Not saying you have to, obviously don't be like, not saying you need to be Trump, right? Obviously. But when you focus on the money and the corruption, all of the other policy pieces fall into place. Because if you focus in on money and corruption, that brings in the healthcare industry, that brings in the issue with the insurance companies and brings in Medicare for all. When you focus on the money and corruption, that brings in the anti-war narrative because you can call out the military industrial complex and yada, yada, yada. all of these policy pieces that people who are progressive, that are running on progressive campaigns, if you just take all of these pieces, all these policy pieces, put them in a bag, tie them up, toss the bag over your shoulder, the person carrying the shoulder is the money and corruption. So you have all these policies up under this umbrella of money and corruption. But to that point that Cenk made about Trump, that is how Trump was able to win, because he focused on the corruption in DC. He focused on the corruption and he connected that back to the working class. And he was able to appeal to working class people, especially in places where Hillary Clinton was not able to. Money and corruption would be a big winner for anyone that's running for president in 2024, because that's something I think that especially people who are working class, we can all relate to that. We all know, a lot of people know politicians are corrupt. They know DC is a mess. So you focus on the money and the corruption, and that's one of those things that can bring out non-voters. So that's something to honestly focus on. So I think he is right about that.
And that instinct that conservative voters have against corruption, I love it. I support it. They're totally right on that. Now they got 100% misdirected by Trump into even more corruption, so it took a wrong turn. But that idea is great. Okay, so now his worst sides. Look, Trump has done a million terrible things, including, by the way, the only major bill he passed, other than First Step Act, was giant tax cuts for the rich and for corporations. So the world's most ironic populist. Like literally no one has helped corporate America and multinational corporations more than Donald Trump. And by the way, if you don't know, he took $100 million from Sheldon Adelson's super PACs in both 2016 and 2020, and then became Sheldon Adelson's bitch. Oh, he just sat there and did everything Sheldon ordered him to do. That's who Donald Trump is. He's just another servant of the rich and powerful.
Another thing I want to add to, don't forget that Joe Biden also continued some of Donald Trump's tax policies.
So, but that's not the worst. Of course, when you're looking at the worst, it's the coup. And so both mainstream media and MAGA guys need to understand that the guys that rushed the building, the Capitol, on January 6th were never going to hold the building. That was not the entirety of the coup attempt. If it was, that's the world's worst coup attempt, right? No, their job in a plan laid out in memos by John Eastman and others, and that's why they got arrested and that's why they're being tried now, was for those guys to delay the proceedings until the Republicans could declare that we're not sure who won and send it back to the states, where the swing states have Republican legislatures, and those had fake electors ready to go. And there's literally a memo called the fraudulent elector memo. So they wrote it out. These are our fake electors. And so then they send that back to the House, and then the House decides who won in a contested election, but they don't vote based on the number of representatives. They vote based on the states. And the Republicans had more states than the Democrats did. So they laid out a plan for a full-blown coup against this country. And then they...
Okay, we'll stop it there, because then they get into the whole January 6th thing. And honestly, I'm kind of tired of hearing about January 6th. So we're going to do some comments and we'll go to the Dave Chappelle story. But you guys see what's happening here. So Cenk Uygur now seems to be okay with... It's a bad look. It's just bad all around. Everybody knows, we learned from the Bernie campaigns to focus on the small dollar donations. Lana says the Supremes wouldn't even hear it. They turned the case down. Sorry, Cenk. Yeah, like that's the thing. That's not something they would consider to be an urgent case. Thank you for the super chat, Janet. Candidates can transfer campaign funds to 501c orgs they own, then transfer those funds to their shell corp as payment for service rendered. Dude, a scammer. Hector says Justice Democrats clearly needed a few more rules, maybe like you have to be anti-war. There were certain countries they pointed out under Justice Democrats that they were not supposed to support. There were certain countries. Israel was one of them. Eric says, I'm not going to say no. Jink for presidential campaign slogan. Delthea says slavery also created a lot of jobs. Right? What? Thank you for the super chat, Timothy. 1, getting jobs back from a pandemic isn't creating jobs. 2, MIC jobs are the worst jobs. Building bombs and guns isn't helping America. There you go. Delthea says any candidate who has no critique of capitalism or thinks that capitalism can be saved by reform is not a candidate for people, period. And thank you for the super chat, Zero Campbell. The voting rights argument is a scam. Who exactly is not allowed to vote? There's a lot we can talk about on call-in tonight, huh? I'll take that comment on Rockfin, Eric, and then we'll get to Dave Chappelle. Thank you so much for the tip on Rockfin, Roger. Big up to the crew and all who showed out today at Richie's office. Wish I could have made it there. Hard to get to the Bronx with no car, but Sabby seeing Medicare for All still leaves insurance in the mix. And after getting informed by you and Kit, we're now done with Medicare for All and retiring it to the dustbin of time. From this day forth, we are dropping Medicare for All and will adopt TRICARE for All. If it's good enough for active duty service, then it's good enough for us. Ooh, Roger, we got some things to talk about tonight. And thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Skip M. Thank you.